Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're diving into a book that honestly turned the world of personal finance on its head for millions of people. I'm talking about Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So, book kicks off with this massive question, right? Why do the rich seem to get richer while so many others just struggle to get by? And the answer, Kiyosaki says, has nothing to do with your paycheck. It's all about the financial lessons we learn, or maybe more importantly, the ones we don't learn growing up. See, the whole book is framed around Kiyosaki's childhood. He had these two major father figures in his life, and they had completely, and I mean completely different philosophies when it came to money. This gave him this incredible, unique perspective to learn from. So on one hand, you've got his actual father, super educated but always struggling with money. He calls him his poor dad. And on the other hand, there was his best friend's dad. This guy dropped out of school in the 8th grade, but ended up becoming a self-made millionaire. That was his rich dad. And what's so wild is that both of them were successful in their fields. Both made a lot of money. But their financial endings? Worlds apart. And this right here, this just lays out the fundamental difference in their thinking. Poor Dad's advice probably sounds super familiar, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. Play it safe. It was all about job security. Rich Dad? Totally the opposite. The lack of money is the root of all evil. Learn to manage risk. His whole game was about financial freedom, about owning the company instead of just working for it. This is such a great example. Think about it. When you say, I can't afford it, that's it. Conversation over. Your brain just shuts down. But when you ask, how can I afford it? Well, that changes everything. It becomes a problem to solve. Your brain has to get creative and start looking for answers. Rich Dad saw this as like a mental workout for your financial muscles. Okay, so picture this. Little 9-year-old Robert goes to his rich dad and says, teach me how to make money. And Rich Dad's first lesson? It wasn't some boring lecture, oh no. It was a pretty unconventional hands-on test. The offer was this: come work for me for 10 cents an hour. A measly 10 cents. So he and his buddy Mike spent their Saturdays 3 hours at a time dusting cans in one of Rich Dad's stores. All that effort for a grand total of 30 cents. I mean, that could barely get you a single comic book back then. So after a month of this, Kiyosaki was fed up. He marched up to his mentor and basically called him a cheapskate, for exploiting child labor. He felt like he was being used, not taught anything, and he was totally ready to quit. He demanded a raise because he thought, more money was the solution. But then Rich Dad flips the script. He offers to pay him nothing, zero. And that right there was the real lesson. He was trying to break that connection in his brain between working and getting a paycheck. He wanted him to stop thinking about working for money and start figuring out how to make money work for him. And this is what Rich Dad called the rat race. It's this endless loop that so many people get stuck in. He said it's driven by two emotions, fear and greed. The fear of not having enough money to pay your bills, that's what gets you out of bed and to your job. But then, once you get that paycheck, greed, or, just the desire for nicer things, kicks in, and you spend it. It's a cycle that just keeps you running and running on that hamster wheel, never really getting anywhere. So the big question is, how do you get off the hamster wheel? How do you escape the rat race? Well, according to Rich Dad, it all boils down to something he called financial literacy. And at the heart of it is one super simple but incredibly profound rule that really separates the rich from, everyone else. First up, an asset. Super simple definition. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. That's it. Think about a rental property bringing in monthly rent or stocks paying you dividends. It's basically a little money-making machine that you own. And a liability? You guessed it. It's the exact opposite. It's something that takes money out of your pocket. Things like your car loan, your credit card debt, these are money-draining machines. And this right here, this is the whole ball game. The rich spend their lives acquiring assets. The poor and middle class, they spend their lives acquiring liabilities that they think are assets. And that misunderstanding, Kiyosaki argues, is the #1 reason for most financial struggles. So let's look at how this actually plays out with cash flow. For most people, it's a one-way street. Money comes in from a job, and it flows right back out to pay for taxes, the mortgage, car payments, you name it. There's little to nothing left to go into that asset column. But for the rich, it's a completely different story. Their assets generate income. And what do they do with that income? They use it to buy more assets, which in turn generates even more income. It's this powerful, almost unstoppable cycle of growth.
Okay, so if the goal is to buy assets, how the heck do you actually do that? That brings us to the next big lesson, which is mind your own business. And this doesn't necessarily mean you have to quit your job and start a company. What it really means is you have to focus on building your own asset column.
I love this example from the book. Ray Kroc, the guy who founded McDonald's, once said that his business wasn't actually hamburgers. Now that sounds crazy, right? But he understood the difference. His profession was selling hamburger franchises, but his business, the thing that made him incredibly wealthy, was accumulating all the valuable real estate that those franchises were built on.
So let's be clear. Your profession pays the bills, but your business is your asset column. We're talking about things like businesses that can run without you having to be there, stocks, bonds, real estate that generates income, or even royalties from a book or a song. These are the things that work for you around the clock, and they are your ticket out of the rat race. And the path to get there is actually pretty simple. Not necessarily easy, but simple. Step one, you keep your day job. You gotta pay the bills, right? But then, with whatever is left over, you buy real assets, not liabilities that look like assets. You just focus relentlessly on growing that asset column. You cut down on your liabilities and pointless expenses. And here's the fun part. Eventually, you let the income from your assets buy your luxuries, not your paycheck. Over time, that asset column will grow so big that it can support you completely. All right, so let's boil it all down. What is the one single most important takeaway from Rich Dad, Poor Dad? If you're going to remember just one thing from all this, what should it be? It's this. It's not about how much money you make. It's really not. It's about how much money you keep, and more importantly, how hard that money is working for you. You could have a huge salary, but if it all goes out the door to pay for liabilities, you're not getting any wealthier. Real wealth comes from knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, and then having the discipline to just keep buying assets. So the book leaves us with this final, powerful question to ask ourselves. And the answer isn't in what you say, it's in what you do. It's in your bank statements and your balance sheet. The question is, are you working for money, or is your money working for you? Because according to this book, your answer to that will determine your entire financial life.